Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Hitting Zones podcast. That is where we get baseball topics, and of course, when they enter the zone, we crush them. Game 7 Baseball, proud sponsor, game7baseball.com. Also, Prime Sports Midwest down there in Fenton. I had Festus, I had Afton, I had all kinds of places. Arnold, and it's Fenton. I don't know the address. I know it's on Ocello, as Brian would say, Ocello Drive. But go see Rick Benz down there. But anyways, this is episode number 11. So we're in double digits. So I get to say another episode now that we've hit some double digits. Brian keeps bringing me back, so I think I'm doing an okay job. I'm pretty excited about today's episode. I think I met you maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe pre-COVID. You guys come out to the facility as part of the Extreme. And obviously with the shirt you're wearing, we have had a little bit of change. So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself today, and we'll talk some baseball.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me. My name is Cody Massey. I am now the new owner of Buzzin Baseball. So a player development company located here in the St. Louis Metro East. Our facility is actually inside the field house in St. Jacob, Illinois. Over the last few years, the last 7 years, I was actually the director of Extreme Elite Baseball over here in the Metro East. Was just in charge of all things high school baseball through that club, from player development to coach development, recruiting, all those things. It was a blast. Love all the people there still. I have those are some of my best friends. Great relationships there. But was just ready for a change of pace in my life. I was running and running, just going from hotel to hotel in the summer to hopping in cages in the winter, and just a lot of people just kind of fell under my radar. And I have a growing family, so I have a wife and 3 young boys, Boone, Banks, and Baker, all under the age of 5, and so was ready to slow down just kind of my pace of life. Recently, I've also taken a head coaching job at Maryville Christian High School over here in the Metro East. So, just God's kind of shifted me gears a little bit. The heart and soul of why I love baseball is just the relationships with players and athletes. So stepping into just strictly player development allows me to do what I really love to do every single day, which is getting them better, build relationships with them, and growing alongside these kids. So slowing down the team aspect a little bit and running and gunning with those guys. But again, just nothing but love for that club and what they've done for me and launched me into what I do now, which is, again, just strictly player development. So it's been awesome.
I met Brett a long time ago coaching against him. I coached softball. Met Jess a while ago on the softball side, and then obviously we met several years. I think it was pre-COVID. I'm not sure. Maybe it was during COVID when you guys had come out there talking about maybe some opportunities out this way with our group. For whatever reason, it doesn't work out, but that's business, right? You gotta find out. What I like about what you said there is the relationships, and I'll say this every single show because it continues, and this is our 11th episode. We've talked about it on our other podcast here, is just the relationship side of this sport. And I think how I grew with Brian and YBM is that relationship versus the transactional side. And I feel like sometimes on the team side, which now you're having both, and I'm kind of trying to phase my way into what you're doing because the development side's so much easier on me in my mind. The coaching side of it's a little different than how I played, what I'm used to coaching. I don't have a good grasp on today's generation. I'm learning, I'm trying, because obviously that's my job to do. But it's stressful. I'm getting older, and the stress is less desirable, if you will. The relationship side of things, it's better than the transaction. I feel like that's what the team side is. Are you feeling that and I know that this change is relatively new for you. And I think you're a month old, 2 months. I mean, you might have been working on this in the project, but you announced it maybe a month or so ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, so that's the thing too. Like, I was going through the summer and running through the club thing, and actually, when I left, I didn't know what I was going to do next. To be honest, I didn't know if I'd stay in baseball. I knew I still coached in high school and stuff like that. But yeah, this actually wasn't even in the cards. When I left the club side, it was more of, man, I needed to slow down. I needed to be with my wife and kids. I have a new young baby at home too, and so I stepped aside, not really knowing what baseball looked like in the future of that. And when I did, it was just funny, like left and right. I have all my clients and kids calling me like, "Hey, like, can we still hit? Like, can we still? Are you still going to be working around?" And so the more and more I just prayed about it, the more and more it showed of like, man, I still I think need to. This is what I'm called to do. This is what I enjoy doing. It just needs to look a little different, you know. And so um, over that span, just a couple weeks, is like Buzzin baseball was born. It wasn't like a long planned out thing, you know. It's just kind of happened that way. It's like I couldn't really step away from what I love to do, and this just allowed me to do it on a, like you said, like an easier scale from a standpoint of just my family life and the stress of overseeing all that I was overseeing. It's you have teams out of town, and it's raining in Indianapolis, like, and I'm back here in St. Louis, and I have to have my phone on me at 5 a.m. to make sure their game's on time and stuff like that. It's those things I was just never turned off, right? My phone was always on. I had to be on all the time, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But it came to a crossroads of, man, this is a lot. This is a lot. So
It takes a special person, doesn't it? I mean, for everybody that, and this is what bothers me sometimes, and it's the social media side of it. But how many people, and I know that there's some bad apples. There's obviously in everything we do, there's one or many. But we get just the pressure we get as directors, and nobody thinks about that side of it, and especially our families. It takes a special kind of woman or spouse to be a part of what we do, because I mean, in the season, I'm up till midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I get very little sleep. There's a ton of stress. Nobody, and I don't. Other than this, I don't really talk about it. I don't go to social media and give me my respect that I'm desired. I don't do that. This is my job. I signed on for it. But our significant others, man, like, and mine, we've been doing this. I coached college ball. I had a regular 40-hour-a-week job. I didn't work in the school. I coached college sports. I coached youth sports. I did lessons. I was never home. And we talked about things, and when we first met, just what are you supposed to do? And for a long time, I didn't know. And then one day I woke up and having those conversations with the man upstairs, it was like, I need to I need to influence somehow. And the best way I knew how was through baseball. And so I said, if we do this, I'm all in. Like, there's going to have to be sacrifices. And shout out to all the significant others that are on the outside of this, trying to keep us sane. And I'm sure this is why you made the decision, because you wanted to make life a little bit easier. You have some young kids. Fortunately for me, I had some older kids. I started a lot younger. My first child, I was 15 years old when I had my first child. Or I just turned 16. So I was a heck of a lot younger. But again, it was easier for me and my family to go through that. And I've had some experiences like yours, that have had young kids. It's like, I have to make something change, but they can't get out of the sport, which I want to talk about that a little bit, because you talk about the development side, and I am geared gung-ho about this movement. I don't know if that's necessarily a movement, but it has become more relevant, I think, in today's sports, because there's so much information that we're given, and we're finding out, we're just a little bit behind other states, and we're looking at these teams from Oklahoma or whatever, and the first thing that they do is you look at these kids and they're like, man, they're massive. And so development is not just how to field a ground ball, how to hit a ball, how to throw a ball. I mean, this is nutrition, this is weightlifting, this is everyday work. And what I've learned about the development side is this is where you're your best, I'm assuming. This is why you're doing it with Buzzin baseball. And how do you feel about development in general? And what are some of the expectations parents are, what is your opinion on what parents think development is or means?
Yeah, and I think just backing up into what you're talking about, like my why is just what you said, like having the influence, right? Like a coach impacts more people in 1 year than an average person impacts their entire life, right? And Billy Graham said that, and there's truth to that. And like that's the heart and soul of why I want to get back into the cage, back in with athletes. Is like I want to be in a world where like I have that influence, and I'm stewarding that really well with those kids. And so when it comes to player development, it's like that is player development. It's like I want to be there and have, not just come in for 30 minutes, let's swing, pat your butt, get out of here, see you next week. It's like these are guys that I text with throughout the week. We talk back and forth through their games. We talk back and forth through what they're working on. If they see a cool video on Instagram, they shoot it over. Hey, what do you think of this and what we talked about this week? I'm just an ear for a lot of these kids, and not just baseball stuff. This is stuff. These are baseball players, but like these are people, and it's different. Talking to mom and dad about some things, or talking to teachers. But when you have a coach in your life that you can really lean into as you're going through, just some hard years of life and high school and junior high and things. That's ultimately like my why is I want to be in the room with the influence there. And you brought it up earlier, like, man, I have a hard time coaching this generation and so on, but it's like, I'm not too far removed. I mean, I'm getting older now, but, being around these young kids keeps me young and keeps it to where it's, man, they can lean into me as one of the guys, but also somebody that's, going to kick them in the butt when they need to be kicked in the butt. So when it comes to player development, it's like that holistic approach of, the hit balls hard and throw hard, lift hard, eat well, but also just how do I, go through this life with discernment and wisdom and those kind of things. Like that's what I love doing too. So it's been a lot of fun. And I'm excited to, partner with what you're saying, more people that can get guys stronger and faster and so on. And I'm looking forward to doing that. But a month in, that's ultimately my why and why I'm excited to get up, and just that circle of influence that I can have.
Yeah, and and we've brought on some coaches like yourself and myself, and my biggest thing, and we've brought some young people that are just fresh into the business. Andrew Keck was last week, and he's young. He just retired from playing professional baseball, and while he's been kind of doing instruction a little bit, it's his everyday life, and so our job. And for me, I think about the guys that influenced me, the teachers that influenced me, and it had nothing to do with math or history or science. It had everything to do with what I needed in the moment. And I think, one of the ways that I've tried to connect, and I'm not good at this. I'm 44. Facebook is my thing, right? Like that's everybody my age. All the kids are on Instagram. And so what I've learned and how to start building trust or even confidence in what I'm telling them at practice, I just start sharing a whole bunch of videos I see on Instagram. And for whatever reason, that had created a little bit of trust, identity in what we were trying to do. And then it felt good for me because I was trying to find ways on how to be a leader to them, or, somebody that can encourage them, somebody that can help them mentally or physically, the whole game, right? So in today's generation, it's the mental side that drives me bonkers. I'm a 16-year-old parent. I know exactly what tough life is, and going 0 for 3 is not included in that. Changing diapers at 2 o'clock in the morning was way tougher than going 0 for 3 in a big game. And I didn't understand that piece. What I did understand is 0 for 3 was fine because tomorrow I could go 4 for 4, and I am having a whale of a start of a week. Kids today think 1,000 is the minimum. And I'm like, that's not even close. Like the minimum is like 280 and you're doing a good job, or 260, an on base percentage of 380, something like that. Like you can hit 200 and have an OBP at 380. You're still doing a job. I mean, granted, I think, averages and it all works out, but if you hit the ball hard, like we should be happy about that. Not today. And so that's how I try to relate, is try to share that information that I see that can be influential. And I've noticed I've got a little bit more respect from the kids. I feel like they're starting to trust me a little bit differently. Are you seeing that too, like with how you're sharing on Instagram or the back and forth being available? Because again, cell phone, instant results. They want that information right then and there. You might as well give it to them. So have you found that a similar experience?
For sure, and that's why I think for me, like I put my whole life on social media. I put how I father my kids, how I love my wife, all those things because I want them to see that influence in how I walk and how I live my life. Because there's a lot of confusion when it comes to social media, right? These kids see Max Clark hitting balls 150, and they're like, "Oh, well, why is that not me?" And it's like they don't see the grimy side of Max Clark. Like that guy probably gets up and eats 6 eggs and oatmeal and all that stuff before school while you're eating your Pop Tart, And so they see all the glamour side of that, and it's like there needs to be more of in your face, like this is what it takes, and not this is what it is. Because your kid throws on an arm sleeve, he automatically thinks he's gonna throw 100 mile an hour, and it's like, man, it doesn't work like that. The world doesn't work like that, and so. There's a dark side of social media. There's a positive side. I'm trying to just showcase all of it because again, I want people to see that I'm a nobody, man. I'm a nobody. I'm a Division II baseball player that loves life and loves learning the game. And I'm hoping that next year when I'm coaching on August 20th, I know 10 times more than I do now, right? And so if I'm constantly growing and I'm constantly working on myself, I want to showcase how I'm going about that because I want these kids to do the same.
Yeah, evolving as a coach is key, and I'm always open to listen. I don't always maybe end up doing it, or I put my own twist on things. But I feel like if we're as coaches, directors, owners, whatever club owners, whatever you want to call us, if we stop learning, that it's time to walk away from the game because then we're doing a disservice. There's no value, and then I'm not fulfilling what I believe that. My route in life should take, and I love every piece of that. How old are you?
I'm 29. I'll be 30
Oh, you're
here
still young.
in a month.
That's a pretty good beer for a 29-year-old, man. That's solid.
It's actually
How old are you?
actually trimmed up a little bit.
Well, I know normally it's like down to where the top of the circle is on Buzzin. It's like I try to trim up today just to try to look good, and I put a little beard oil, but I don't think I put enough because I'm not glistening on screen, but. I was like, man, I know Cody's got a good beard, so I better come prepared. You played D2 baseball. I was at Missouri Western in St. Joe, Missouri, MIAA back in the days. Where did you go?
Yeah, I was in the MIAA too, man. I was at Southwestern Illinois College, so JUCO over here. Played for Neil Fiala, big name in St. Louis. If you don't know Neil, you need to know him. He's a stud.
Yeah.
And so from SWIC, I went on to play at Southwest Baptist University. Back then, they were in the MIAA, so now they're in the GLVC. But so we probably ran a lot of the same fields. That's cool.
Yeah, we when I was at Mo West, we had Phil Welch, and so they didn't have their field that they have now. I think when the Kansas City Chiefs came in, they had dumped a lot of money into Missouri Western. I believe that's how kind of the baseball softball field was built over there. But you have to know if you are a Metro guy, St. Louis guy. I'm not sure if many people out here in St. Charles County know him unless they kind of migrated out this way. But Neil, it's crazy to see how he has impacted so many different people from so many different spots. Whether it was adult baseball, obviously high school youth, and college level kids. I mean, he literally has influenced so many people without even knowing. Whether it's the roots of the Fiala family. I mean, I got, I don't know when this was, maybe, I'm not sure. I was inducted into this Amateur Hall of Fame thing, and I was inducted the same time Fiala was inducted. And we must have had 100 people there. Everybody knew him. And he's old, and I'm like, how did he impact East St. Louis's Montclair League over there when East St. Louis was there, the Colts and all these different things? And I'm like, he has literally had an influence on so many people. Heck of a guy, heck of a family. And I know that some of they're tough. They're a little different. If you've ever had the ability, the opportunity to play for them, you knew that they were tough. But I do have I've had some things the last couple of weeks interesting conversations. You talk about development, and I had a person get upset with me because I did not want to do instruction for an 8-year-old hitter. And what age, and I'll give you my thoughts, but I've been kind of passionate about this because I've been getting chewed out a little bit because I've been doing this for 20-something years, and I feel like I can pick and choose where I want to be, and I don't have to just take the dollar anymore to survive. I can pick and kind of choose what I do. But at 8 years old, I'm thinking go outside, play catch as much as you can, swing a wiffle ball bat, swing a tennis racket, swing a racquetball, whatever. Have fun. Stop. You don't need to spend all this kind of money at 8 years old. Do you think that there's a good age where, and I'm talking about the mass population, not your one-off kids who are 10 years old that are studs or that are, are a little bit more mature. I'm talking about a generic age where instruction is really needed. I think I'm asking that the right way.
Yeah. I don't think it's as much an age as it is a maturity on the game. Because like you said, there's some twins that come to mind that I trained. They're 8th grade now. I started training them when they were 6. And man, when they were 6, they walk in the door, you could have said these kids were 13 when it comes to baseball maturity, right? I'm turning double plays with them. We're working on, flips and all this different stuff. And I've had, 11-year-olds come in that they're coming in because mom and dad wants to sit on Facebook for 30 minutes while they hit in the cage. And in those instances, I'll just walk up to them and say, hey, I'm not going to take your money to train this kid because I know week over week, we're not going to be on a progression that's going to develop this kid over a long term. So it's here's your money back. If this kid truly loves baseball, then you need to go play baseball with this kid. And if he truly wants to get better and you guys are going to work on that as a family, come back. But I don't think it's as much an age as it is just where kids are in their baseball maturity. And that doesn't mean this kid doesn't know anything so he can't train with Cody, right? It's this family understands what they're signing up for when it comes into get work in. They're going to use that time with me as a catalyst for their work in the week, right? They're going to use that 30 minutes to learn some things, to work on it over the next 6 days, come back on the 7th day, and they've exponentially grown just by catapulting into their week from their time with me. That's my goal, is to get them inspired, motivated, learn something new, come back the next week a different player. And then week over week, we're going to do that together. And it's not just me and the athlete. People are don't mess with parents. It's man, what do you mean don't mess with parents? 1, they're paying the bills. 2, they're driving them there. 3, that's their that's their person that's going to help them get work in, right? This dad's I got to teach him how to throw front toss the right way because I want him to throw front toss to his kid. And so when it comes down to an age thing, man, I've definitely turned people away because of maturity. I don't think I've turned them away from age per se. But yeah, where I'm at as far as my clientele, most of my guys are high school, college athletes, probably 90%. But I do train some youngsters too that love the game and their family's on board with where they're progressing. So
yeah, I think same way. So you have to kind of get a feel for who that player is, when they come in, and because we have teams, and I'm sure that you had this with the Extreme, you would have 11-year-old team that was pretty darn good, and you're those are guys that I could work with. And for me, I feel that's a small percentage of kids, though, that at 10, 11 years old are working at home. And what bothers me a lot is that I keep getting blamed for the lack of game results. And my question, of course, I'm older now, and so my questions are a little bit different. So if you're going to come at me a particular way, I'm going to give you a particular answer that you're probably not going to like, which it's fair, right? And they just have to perceive it that way. They don't. Listen, your kid doesn't come in here and he hits for 30 minutes. He does a great job. You watch, but what did you do on Tuesday? What did you do on Wednesday? I cannot convince you enough to go home and work. And I don't know anywhere that you can go for 30 minutes and get better at your job. I can tell you that my first episode doing this podcast, I was nervous. I didn't know what to say. I was stumbling over words, and now I feel like I'm doing a heck of a lot better job. It's only going to continue to grow. At least that's how I'm assuming, because that's my work ethic. But go to work, right? And I think that's a small percentage in expectations. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to work with your 8-year-old kid. Why don't you bring him up here, feed a machine, let him take 1,000 reps, sweat, work out, or go to the gym and teach him how to move first, with a personal trainer or, something like that. I'm like, these kids sit in cell phones and tablets and play video games all day long, and they have no motor skills. And I get told that, the fat kid, the mom says, you cut my kid because he's overweight. He's a big kid. He's a fat kid, whatever the case may be. I'm a fat kid, and I played baseball as a fat kid and as a fat adult too. So to me, I feel like I can say that, I guess. But like the scrawny kid, it's not because he's small. It's because he doesn't have the strength to throw hard. He doesn't have the strength to hit the ball a particular way. So why are we teaching a kid to hit a ball over the fence when he should be slapping, doubles over or, down each line, and trying to hit duck farts all over the place, trying to get on base and run fast? Like, why aren't we utilizing our athletes? And I think that we miss this because, one, I don't think there's enough honesty in the game as developers. And I don't think parents can handle it when they do get it. And this is why I have a huge problem with just young kids, coaching the young side, is because parents want me to be this miracle doctor for 30 minutes. And really, it's not 30 minutes, it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes, because we're spending time trying to put them in positions that we want them to be efficient in. And then they go home and they don't do nothing. They go back playing video games. I'm like, I can't do this. If you want your kid to excel, you have to have a game plan. And I think what you're trying to do, and when I talk to Shane Eames and Andrew Keck and all these guys, they're trying to develop the athlete more than just for 30 minutes. Come to me twice a week. Come to me 3 times a week. You know what? I can get more done in 4 weeks coming to me 3 times a week than I can for 12 weeks, 1 time for 30 minutes. Now, granted, it's a dedication. Somebody's driving you there, so I understand this piece. But man, I need parents to pump brakes. I just spit everywhere, but I need parents to pump brakes a little bit and identify what their athlete is and stop worrying about the Joneses. Do you have that?
Bingo.
Do you have that?
Yeah, and that's where you hit on a lot of good stuff there, man. Like first off, you talked about, parents get upset with you over game results and things like that. That's where I'm not a quick fix guy either, man. Like, don't come hit with me the day before your tryout. It's like, hey, I got tryouts tomorrow. Can you get me good for my tryouts? Like, I could have got you good last year if we, if we were training for a year and we learned how to move right and all these things. Like, we're not gonna change your life in 30 minutes. That said, too, like, I have kids where they'll come in and they're such poor movers. We won't even swing a bat for half the time. Like, I have them on water bag stuff and stability stuff and med ball stuff and PVC things. And parents look at me like I have 7 eyeballs. And it's like, dude, your kid can't handle this bat right now. Like, you're dropping whatever, it's middle school baseball, you're climbing to a drop 3. The kid's so weak, like, he can barely lift his PlayStation controller. Like, we have some things we need to do first foundationally before we even work on hitting pull side homers or whatever that looks like for you. And so again, that's where parents come into play with me, though, is I want to have honest conversations with them. I want them to understand expectations. What do game results mean for your family? Is 4 for 4 with 4 duck farts as cool as 0 for 4 with 4 robbed home runs? Because again, like, your game changer, you might be able to brag to your work buddies the next day that your kid went 4 for 4, but like, in reality, it was garbage and it's not going to translate into the next level. And so getting them to understand expectations is huge. And that's, again, like, why I love the relationship piece. Like, I'll have conversations with families as a whole of like, these are expectations that you guys need to learn. I want to help walk along you as you go through this. This is going to be tough for your kid. He's learning new movement. He's moving like a baby giraffe through puberty, like all these things, right? And so if we can have those conversations and have those relationships with clients, everything moves so much smoother because then I don't get blamed for stuff because they understand the expectations that I have for them and that they have for me, and we can hold each other accountable instead of that back and forth. Man, why aren't you doing this, or why is my kid not having success? So all that stuff you just hit on, man, is huge, and that's all stuff that I love. Like, I eat that up.
Yeah, I think about, when we have these conversations, because you see some coaches out there, and I'm not throwing any shade at anything like that, that like to really say, I did that. And I have an idea, and I give a direction. You're a man of faith, and so I always think about like how I want to be visioned. Is there's that I don't remember what the photo says. It's a photo of somebody walking on the beach, and there's only 1 foot a set of footprints. And you said walk along, and this is what made me think about this. So sorry for the whole random left field, but I want to be, and I know that I'm not comparing myself to Jesus or God by no means, but I want to be that instructor that's walking along you and you never see me. I don't want to be that visual piece. I have the directions. I can give you that leadership. I can give you the idea. You have to execute the plan. And I always felt that if you felt like you were executing it, instead of relying on me, like especially because some of my teammates come and hit with me. So what happens during a game when they make a bad swing? They look down on me like, "What did I do?" And I was like, "Dude, that was a curveball that just darn near bounced. Like, you should have a bad swing. You got fooled, whatever, but you fought it off. Like, I'm proud of you." And they look at me like they did something wrong. And I'm like, no. Thank you for fouling it off and not striking out, right? So, it's like I don't want kids to look at me and go, "What did I do?" I want you to have enough confidence because you're working 5 other days a week, but you can get it off day, man. Like whatever. If you need a day, you need a day. It's always on my mind. I have a different kind of passion and love. I'm obsessed with baseball. I'm obsessed with sports in general because I think it saves so much. I think it's a release of reality. I look at baseball or sports in general very different than a lot of people do. I think a lot of people just play it because it's something to do. There's a couple, 15 other dudes hanging out there. You could talk about whatever, and I don't think there's enough people that love the sport anymore, but I don't know, man. I don't want people to see me as the reason, and I don't know if it's good for business or bad for business, because I feel like the word of mouth carries a heck of a lot more weight than me blasting all over the place. I got this kid to the next whatever, and it's like, no, I gave the kid the direction. The kid deserves every piece of that recognition.
Bam. And to answer your question, is it good or bad for business? It's great for business because it's authentic. And like, I think the most searched word in 2023 was authentic. Like, that was like the most Google searched word. Like, people are craving that, man. There's just too much fake right now, too much noise. And so when you're truly, guiding a kid from the shadows, like, that's an authentic relationship where that kid's, he knows, like, that kid knows. You don't need to go blast it or whatever. And guess what? If that kid knows, other people are going to know that's real. And so, yeah, you're spot on, man. That's exactly where my head's at. I don't want to be Mr. Puff my chest out. You got 4 hits today because you hit with me last night. It's like, man, I want you to understand how you move. I want you to be the one guiding our sessions when we train, because I'm just going to sit there and ask questions. Like, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and tell you what to do. I'm going to sit there and ask questions, and I want you to get to I want you to get there yourself is my goal. So,
yeah, I think it goes a long ways. I think we can all agree that there's a priority that we have in life, and a lot of us put God first, and then it's everything else. And I know that there's a hierarchy in general, but when I don't look at this game and say I did all of that. I say I've been given the ability to have these thoughts or these feelings, whatever. And I don't necessarily like push some of that on folks, but I'm like, when you wake up in the morning, what do you think about? And you want to be this kind of person or this kind of player. I'm like, what do you wake up in the morning and do? Are you bummed because you woke up? because I'm 44 years old and I am very happy that I can stand up. And I hope that I have a lot more of that happening. I know my body hurts, but sometimes I creak and crack, and I got to have someone maybe get a hand if I've thrown a lot of BP. But I'm like, man, I just love standing up. And so I look at things so very difficult, but it's so simple, right? And if I could put a good barrel on a ball, and it's, whatever, getting to this part. If I could put a barrel on a ball and I hit it straight into the ground, I'm going to go, man, I just missed it. I don't worry about what I did wrong. I go, ooh, I need to hit it a little bit more out front or whatever, you know. I don't look at my mechanics and go, what did I do with my hands? What did I do with my legs? What did I do with my torso or trunk? I'm like, just hit the ball out front a little further next time. See what happens. And then I'll hit a ground ball right at the second baseman or shortstop, you know. And then I'll hit a line drive, and then I'll hit the ball over the fence. And guess what happens? I do it all over again. I have a couple pop-ups in there, a couple flare duck farts. But then I have to work back to ground zero, which is hitting the ball back in the dirt. And I think like having an identity as an athlete is so key. And this is what drives me crazy about watching Cardinals baseball. We don't have an identity. And so all of our St. Louis teams, my teams, your teams, or your former teams, are watching the Cardinals with zero identity. We don't have one. And it's like, oh, what do? I just go up and try to lift a 98-mile-an-hour fastball at my chest. Well, Gorman, that's why you strike out 40% of the time. And it drives me bonkers because they're not making adjustments. So it's telling my 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, you don't have to. Because the only way to get paid is because he's going to hit 30 homers. And so let's just try to swing for this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you get one pitch. The umpires gets a pitch. The pitcher gets a pitch. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point you better make sure you don't miss yours. And especially at the youth level, right? And they, for some reason, we just can't adapt to stuff like that. And my coach always used to tell me, swing hard in case I hit it. That was literally my instruction. And I would swing out of my shoes, and I'm telling you, I would miss a lot. But I understood that the first pitch was mine, and the second or first strike was mine, the second and third was my team's, right? And so if it's the umpire, don't give it to him. Try not to allow the umpire to make that decision. But, you know, the pitcher's always going to get one, right? So my job was, I'll take mine. So if I'm looking down and in and I get a strike up and in, I just have a strike on me. I'm gonna equate that as the pitcher's pitch. You know what I mean? And so I think about this game very deeply. and it's like, you can't do that in 30 minutes, right? I mean, and because parents want to pay you for busy work. Do you know who Shane Eames is?
Yeah, it rings a bell. I'm trying to think of who he works with.
He does his own thing out of the Naturals facility. Arnold, maybe.
Right. Yep. That's
PhD
right.
hitting, premier hitting development.
Mm-hmm.
He said something a couple shows ago. I think he was maybe on 4 or 5 episode of this, if you want to go back and watch it. And he talks about busy work. And that's what I think a lot of these circling back, it's a big circle, but it's they want busy work. And I'm like, you could go home and throw a wiffle ball to a kid and get busy work in. You don't have to be here. And save my time for those. And that's why I think the age of 14 really starts to change in how I like to approach lessons and instruction or development. Is one, they're starting to buy into developing the body, moving the right patterns. They've started to grow. They've started to mature body-wise. Or hit puberty, things like that. There's a lot of change that's happening at 14 years old. So I feel like that's this premier age, but that's what I like to coach because the conversation's different. Now they're getting 14 years old and really kind of say, Dad, Mom, this ain't the sport for me. And there's a way to go play baseball, right? We have enough which we can make rec great again. Just go play baseball. Don't have these expectations. It's the parents that are putting these expectations. Because little Jimmy's good at 11 years old does not mean he's going to be good at 15. And let's wake up, pay attention. This happens a lot. I get a kid's like, man, 17 years old. I don't know what happened to my son. Well, he started playing football. He started playing basketball. He's better at those two sports. He started playing soccer. He's better at that sport. Girls, work. Like, Baseball, no, this is why we have half the teams at the high school levels is because they all, at least the travel side or whatever you want to call us, club side, they're just going to play baseball. Legion, Slava, rec leagues, and that's fine. And we should be okay with that. And I just, man, that's what I liked about you. I think when the first time I met you guys, Brett, Swip, and all them guys, and Jess, everybody was just super honest. And I've always followed you, and and I always liked your approach. It's like, hey, here's what you're getting. It's up to you to do the rest, man. And I think that's, again, the conversation. But I love every piece of what you're doing over there. I was shocked when you left. Not gonna lie, I thought you would eventually take Brett's job. And again, I didn't even, for that matter, put in the fact that you had a young family. And I've watched, I think, all 3 kids be born because I've known you for that many years. And so I've seen it on Facebook, which you talked about bringing your light there. And I'm happy for you, man. The name is awesome. The black and gold is awesome. I'm not sure if you're a Pirates fan. I hope that's what you wasn't going with.
No. So, yeah, I actually, so all my kids' names start with B. So you have Boone, Banks, and Baker. And I actually started a lawn company a few years back called Killer Bees Lawn Care. And I actually still have it. It's very small. I just love cutting grass, and I love like entrepreneurship, really. Like, I love that stuff. So I called it Killer Bees Lawn Care after my kids. And so whenever I was building this baseball deal out, I was like, you know what, we'll just stick with the B thing. Buzzin baseball, got a cool little logo with a hive on there. Yeah, it's been awesome. But just back to your point though, on just different conversations and how we want to train those types of kids. It's like it goes back to that maturity piece of if a kid's mature, that's how I train them. Like when they walk in, I ask them questions immediately. And so every kid that I train is 100% different. Like I don't train kids the same at all. So I'll have a 17-year-old walk in. He's like, yeah, coach, I was getting blown up on inside heat this week. Here's why. Like I wasn't, hunting fastballs early in counts. I was too busy giving off speeds credit, things like that. And so like that's how we'll train. And that's how we'll design his weekly work. And same thing, I'll have a 9-year-old that comes in and is like, yeah, like I was chasing horrible pitching because the pitchers couldn't throw strikes, right? And so it's like that 9-year-old is different than that 17-year-old. The 17-year-old's going to face 95 mile an hour WWBA, and the 9-year-old's trying to get a strike to hit. But as long as those kids are the ones guiding the conversations, not dad texting me like, hey, this kid was 0 for 4, he's dropping his shoulder, right? It's like those aren't the conversations that I'm going to be training. I'm training the kid that understands, how he's going to go produce and what's going to get him to produce, and we'll guide those sessions based on that. So I love that, man. I love that. That's why, again, like I don't want to just be a trainer. I don't want to just be a cage rat. I have to go be on the field and coach the game too, because at the end of the day, it's like we can go be 5 o'clock hitters all day long, but that's not going to produce anything. That's not going to let them play this game as long as they want. And so super important as a trainer, as a, somebody that's in player development, that is involved in the day-to-day game-like atmosphere of baseball, because it's so different from being in a cage to going and facing a guy 60 feet 6 inches away on top of a mound. So that's good stuff, man. I love that. I love coaching the approach side of things and helping kids work through that.
Yeah, nobody does that, and that's where I think we become hitting coaches and not just swing guys, right? And really that's where the game is played, is in the approach. Hunter Pence, ugly swing. Luis Castillo from back in the day, not the pitcher. The old, I don't know if his name's Luis Castillo. The Seattle Mariners pitcher, what's his name? It's Luis, ain't it? It doesn't matter.
I don't know, man.
But
there's too many of them.
Yeah, the guy that had funky swings, the Craig Counsels, Mickey Templeton, for all those older heads that are watching. Those guys had all these different swings, but they always got to a certain point, and they always understood what they were good at, and again, what is the approach? And I always think about Ted Williams' Science of Hitting, and he talked about in that being a guest hitter, and we're talking about a guy that hit 408 being a guest hitter because he guessed in situations that said, this is where in this box it's going to be, and I'm not going to miss. And that's how you become a 408 hitter. And I love what you're doing. It's the why. hey, I was, you had an 0 for 4, but why? You missing the heaters. That conversation builds IQ, which I don't think is enough. It's not high enough in today's sport for our youth. So I love that piece, man. Excuse me. Cody, it's been an absolute gem to have you on. I hope to have you on again down the road, maybe in a month and a half or so. Try to kind of just rekindle these relationships again, because I want our community to get to know a little bit about you. And then ultimately, we keep bringing on folks over there in the Illinois side, because we want to advance over there too. And so we want to highlight people who, again, it's about the relationships that we're building. It's not a transaction. Don't come here and think that I need you to spend $45-$50 with me so I can make this killer living or whatever. I can tell you right now, I would rather spend my hour making $20 an hour with a kid who really cares about being there, and a parent that wants to invest in that same manner. Because it is very hard to play college baseball. Would you agree?
Yeah,
Really
it's
hard.
only harder every year. So
Yeah, and it gets really hard, especially with some of the new things coming out with D1. And then it gets really, obviously, it's super hard to play professional baseball. And the moment has to be the right now. So what can I do, for this moment? And so that has to start a year ago. It's like hydrating yourself. You can't drink a whole bunch of water on a Saturday before games. You need to drink it on Wednesday. And you talked about it earlier. You have to develop for 365 days prior to your first high school game. Stop waiting a week. Don't call me a week in advance and say, hey, I need you to help me for tryouts. Hey, you could come in. I'm going to charge a premium because that's what we can do. And I'm going to try to prove to you in 2 weeks we're not going to get you anywhere where you need to be physically or mentally. You know what I mean? So normally I try to end this show with one of those deals where I got something else for you. This is random. Brian's wearing blue and yellow, and I don't know if you're a big hat guy. I'm a big hat guy, specifically New Era 5950s. The NHL has not been in New Era for several years now, and the news just broke that NHL and New Era, we're going to have some Blues hats. And
let's go.
I'm jacked because it's got a big blue note, and it's the navy color with the yellow. I'm jacked about this. I don't know how much you're into hats, but I have no hair. So I like hats. And I'm pumped about this, man. That's my random thought of the day. I know that's really, I guess, in left field or, in the 300 section of the ice rink, but I'm pretty pumped about that. Normally, I end the show with give us some gold for some kids, but I want you this time, give us some gold for the parents. Give some parents some advice on how we could be better overall for our athletes.
Yeah, I would say take a breath. Like, that's number one. Like, take a breath. Like, it's their journey, not yours. I'd say the majority of parents I'm dealing with right now are parents of kids going through the recruiting process. And those kids, like you said, college baseball is super hard right now. It's hard to get in there as a high school athlete when you're going into junior college and you're playing alongside Texas A&M bounce backs that are 22 years old and all this stuff. And so really, like, what I've been telling those guys is, like, one, you're not in control of your journey. Like, you're in control of how you go about your work and how you play the game and those things, but you're not in control. And so my advice to parents and players that are going through that is, man, just read Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, study it and know it. And that's trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. There's too many families and kids thinking they can control it, saying, I'm in 8th grade, I'm playing at the University of Alabama, and those goals are great, right? Those goals are great, but go find your fit and the fit that God wants you to be in, and take a breath and just enjoy the fact that, man, you're playing really good baseball for your high school programs. You're an impact high school baseball player. But that timeline, you can't speed it up as much as you want to, and you want to speed it up and commit alongside all these Instagram heroes. Everybody's timeline's different. Everybody's path looks different. But if you just take a breath and let God sort out the rest, it's all going to be all right. And so that's my advice to parents right now that are going through that. I know the 2025 class this fall is a big time for the recruiting class there. And it's August. last year we had 30 commits in the 2024 class, and I think only 4 of them committed before September 1st. So it's like 26 guys after September 1st. But I just know where it's at in this time right now. We have the high school seniors just went in. They're in their first week of school. They're in their first week of college. I mean, and it looks different, man. It's a whole different world when you step on campus and you're around just dudes, like all at 1 through 40. So that's my advice to parents and players: is just, man, slow down a little bit. It's all going to be all right. Just go a day at a time. So.
Yeah, soon it'll be 1 of 34 with the new rules in the 26, or I guess it's the 2026 class, or 2025 fall. I think it's 2025 fall with the D1 rules. But anyways, here's a little thing, just a little note. If you got anything going on Saturday night, we got this event over at ABC Ballpark with St. Louis Youth Outreach. We're going to be there with YBM, walking around the park. It's a Cops versus Kids home run derby thing going on. So if you wanted to come on this side of the river, you know where ABC's at, don't you? It's by the airport?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I think it's at 4. What time does the event start? 5:30. It's Cops versus Kids, a home run derby. We have athletes around the 14U age group. But overall, it's a really nice event. Well, I'll be out there. I'm going to hand out baseball cards. I did some repacks. There ain't no gems in there. So if anybody's looking for like a $10 or $15 card, you ain't getting that. I sell those or I keep them. Very few Cardinals because I'm a homer, but no Bobby Witts. You might find an Ellie, but bring your kids out so I can hand out some baseball cards. And if you love baseball, I'm going to ask some trivia questions and give those out. But I'm pretty excited. It's my first time being able to be a part of it. And so if you're not doing anything, bring out your family, bring out the little ones, and anybody else that you can bring out. Bring them all.
Sounds awesome.
Bring everybody from Buzzin Baseball, and I'm a 3X, man. So if you got a big shirt, if you don't have a big shirt,
I'll get some big boy shirts sent over to you.
Well, if not, because you usually have to pay the extra $2 or $3 for them, you could send me a sticker. I'll be just fine with a sticker. Cody, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for jumping on with me today, and I can't wait to have you on again, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is a blast.
Yeah, stay safe out there. Thank you, sir.